Hello. Welcome to APPL 2014 to 2017 e-tender briefing. We will start the briefing by introducing you to Pharmaniaga and our role as a Ministry of Health concession holder, and later we will guide you on how to use the e-tender online, and how you should prepare the documentation and sample for submission. After that, we will also share with you on how Pharmaniaga maintains the security and confidentiality of tender quotation data and also the tender evaluation and selection process. We will also briefly go through the performance standards in the supply agreement between successful tenderers and Pharmaniaga. Pharmaniaga is the largest integrated healthcare company in Malaysia, and we hold a concession with the Ministry of Health to provide the following services: procure, store, supply and distribute products in the Approved Products Purchase List or APPL to all Ministry of Health facilities. Adhere to various performance standards set by the Ministry of Health. Pharmaniaga is also required to conduct e-tender exercise every 3 years, to select new suppliers for APPL products. Pharmaniaga administers the e-tender process on behalf of Ministry of Health, and does not have any decision-making influence, as the list of products and their specifications are determined by the Ministry of Health. Tender evaluation and selection is also done by Ministry of Health. The development of Pharmacy Information System and Clinic Pharmacy System in Ministry of Health facilities is also part of the concession agreement. Among the performance standards that we must adhere to includes the following: maintain buffer stock of 3 and 2 months at all times for essential and non-essential products respectively. Deliver to Ministry of Health facilities within 7 and 10 working days in Peninsular and East Malaysia respectively. Products supplied by Pharmaniaga must comply with Ministry of Health specifications with regards to packaging, labeling and other criterias. In addition, products delivered by Pharmaniaga must have at least 2/3 of its shelf life left upon receipt by Ministry of Health facilities. Deliveries must be on a door-to-door basis, and must be done within office hours only. Furthermore, cold chain products must be delivered before 12 noon. Compliance to good distribution practice standards is also compulsory. Failure to adhere to any of these performance standards will result in heavy penalties being imposed on Pharmaniaga by the Ministry of Health. We will now take you through the procedures involved in order to participate in the APPL 2014 to 2017 e-tender. First, you can either enter the direct address at etender.pharmaniaga.com or log on to Pharmaniaga's website and click the e-tender icon on the lower left side of the screen. You will be taken to Pharmaniaga's e-tender website. Click on the link to register a new account. Next, you may create your username and password. Please fill in your valid details in the user account registration form. If you are a Bumiputra company, please ensure that you fill in your Bumiputra certification number and validity period. Also please fill in your Ministry of Finance contractor certification number and validity period. Just as a reminder, these details can be obtained from the Ministry of Finance Bumiputra and contractor certificates. Once you have completed the user account registration form, click Submit to create your e-tender account. Your user account has been created, and you can return to the main page to log in using your username and password that you entered during the user registration. You can now log into the e-tender system with your username and password. Then click Submit. On your first login, you will be presented with a few relevant documents relating to the e-tender. Namely, the e-tender guidelines and general terms and conditions, the salient terms of the supply agreement, the e-tender user manual, the e-tender product list and the product specifications of e-tender products. Please note that these documents are very important, and you are required to read and agree with them before being allowed to proceed further. Once you have accepted the document terms, you will be allowed to view the product list and product specifications. For example, click on Drugs. You will be shown the list of e-tender products. Let's click the first product. A window will pop up with a product name and estimated tender quantity. Please take note that the estimated tender quantity is in the smallest unit. Click on the product code to view the product specification for the product. The product specification will open in a new window, and is in PDF format, so you can save it to your computer for future use and reference. Once you have viewed the product specification, you may return to the main page to buy a tender key, if you are interested in submitting a tender quotation. To buy a tender key, click on the Buy Tender Key link above the product list. You will be allowed to select which products to buy tender keys for by ticking the specific checkboxes. Once you have selected your products, click Add to Basket. You will be taken to the shopping basket screen, which will show the list of selected products and the total cost of the tender keys. Click Checkout to proceed with the tender key purchase. A message will pop up to remind you to download the product specification and other related documents. Click OK if you have done so. You will be taken to a screen showing the payment methods and instructions. You are advised to print the screen for your reference. Please click Submit when ready. Once you have submitted your tender key purchase request, you will be taken to the tender key purchase acknowledgement screen. You will be allowed to access the online tender quotation form after submitting the tender key purchase request. To do this, hover your mouse over Tender at the top of the page, and click on Submit Tender. You will be taken to the Submit Tender screen, which will show the products you have purchased tender keys for. To enter a quotation, product information and specification compliance for a product, click on the product code. You will be taken to Form A, Form B and Form C, which are the online tender documents. You may proceed to fill in your quotation details in Form A. Among the mandatory information required in the form are the product packaging offered, the price, and MAL number for drug products. Please ensure that the price quoted is inclusive of CIF and tax whenever applicable. Please fill in the product quality certification, such as BE or CE report and company information in Form B. Apart from Form A and Form B, you are also required to download Form C, the technical compliance form, which is in Microsoft Excel format. Please save the Form C Excel file in your computer. Please ensure that you do not change the Excel file name. Please declare your product's compliance to the product specification by filling in the appropriate sections of Form C. Please take note that all sections are mandatory except for Other Consideration section. Please upload the completed Form C Excel file to the system before proceeding further by clicking the Browse button. Once you have completed filling in Form A and Form B and uploaded the completed Form C, you may save the document. At the Submit Tender screen, you will notice that the products with completed and saved Form A, Form B and Form C is located in a separate list at the bottom of the screen. From this screen, you may proceed to enter quotations for other products, and edit or submit quotations for completed forms. In the example shown in the screen, you will notice that the saved products cannot be submitted, as there is a padlock symbol in the checkbox used for quotation submission. This is because payment for the tender key has yet to be received by Pharmaniaga. You will only be allowed to submit the online quotation forms after Pharmaniaga has received actual payment for the tender key. Once Pharmaniaga has received payment, the Submit Tender button will be enabled and you can submit your quotations by putting a check mark in the relevant checkboxes and click Submit button. Once you have successfully submitted your tender quotation, you are required to print hard copies of Form A, Form B and Form C for submission to Pharmaniaga on or before the e-tender closing day. You may do so by either clicking the print button or by hovering your cursor on tender and clicking Print Form ABC link. You will be able to print hard copies of Form A, Form B and Form C from this screen by clicking the printer icons. Now, let us guide you on how to prepare the documentation and samples for e-tender submission to Pharmaniaga. Things that are mandatory for you to prepare for your e-tender submission are: first, company profile; second, quotation, which consists of Form A, Form B and Form C; third, product documentation; and finally, product samples. Now, let us guide you step by step on how to prepare the documentation and samples for e-tender submission. First, how to prepare your company profile. Company profile should contain information of the company such as 1. Introduction and background of the company including nature of business. 2. Organization chart. 3. Company's achievements if any. 4. Any other relevant information. Tenderers are also required to submit a copy of the following documents: 1. Form 9 or Form 13. 2. Form 24. 3. Form 49. 4. Ministry of Finance Certificate. 5. Bhumiputra Certificate. Only applicable if your company is Bhumiputra. 6. Latest company audited accounts for past 2 years. 7. GMP or ISO certificates. 8. Any other relevant documents. All these documents should be compiled and filed in an A4 size management file, and separated using an index divider labeled with the subject title. Please take note that only one company profile per company is required regardless on the number of products that you are submitting. Second, how to prepare quotation envelope. Print out Form A, Form B and Form C that you had filled up completely and submitted online. These forms are to be printed on an A4 size paper. All hard copy Form A, Form B and Form C should be stamped with company stamp and signed by authorized personnel before submission. Insert your Form A, Form B and Form C into an A4 size envelope. Please take note that you should have only one quotation envelope for each product that you are participating. For example, if you have two you should have two separate quotation envelopes. Insert Form A, Form B and Form C for product X into quotation envelope X and insert Form A, Form B and Form C for product Y into quotation envelope Y. Quotation envelope guidelines. Quotation envelope should be sealed before submission. Product description and product code should be clearly labeled on the top right corner of the envelope. Use only a non-transparent A4 size envelope. Please do not fold the quotation form or the quotation envelope. Third, how to prepare product documentation. For drug, product documentation should consist of certificate of analysis for the sample batch, product insert, and any other relevant documents related to the product such as bioequivalent report. All the documents should be compiled and inserted in an A4 size management file. Please take note that one product documentation is required per unit sample. Thus, we need 3 product documentation files to accompany 3 product samples for drug. For non-drug, product documentation should consist of certificate of analysis for the sample batch, product catalog or brochure, and any other relevant documents related to the product such as CE certificate. All the product documents should be compiled and inserted in an A4 size management file. Please take note that one product documentation is required per unit sample. Thus, we need 7 product documentation files to accompany 7 product samples for non-drug. Please take note that there are certain products that require only pictures. kindly refer the product specifications in Part 1 under the Sample for Technical Evaluation clause for further details. All the pictures should be included in the product documentation, and you are required to submit 3 units of product documentation per product code. Please take note that all drug and non-drug samples submitted should be in a commercial pack. For drug, kindly be advised that you are required to submit 3 units of commercial pack. Insert all product documentation and samples in one box, and tag each box with pre-printed labels. Pre-printed label on the box should contain product description and product code, as stated in the product specifications. Now, for non-drug, kindly be advised that you are required to submit 7 units of commercial pack. Insert all product documentation and samples in one box, and tag each box with pre-printed labels. Pre-printed label on the box should contain product description and product code, as stated in the product specifications. In summary, you will have one company profile, quotation envelope based on the number of product that you are participating, 3 pairs of product documentation and samples for each drug product, or 7 pairs of product documentation and samples for each non-drug product. Now, let us go through the tender submission process and flow. 3 components must be fulfilled before an e-tender submission is considered complete. 1. Online quotation submission through the e-tender online module as shown earlier. 2. Hard copy tender documents, and 3rd. Product samples and product documentation, which must be submitted to Pharmaniaga before or on the e-tender closing date. For hard copy and product samples submission, tenderers are required to pass through 4 counters. First, the screening counter, where the tenderer's documentation will be inspected to ensure all required documents are present and complete. Second, the registration counter, where the tenderer's company and tender registration details will be recorded. Third, the quotation submission counter, where the tenderer is required to insert tender quotation documents into tender boxes. Finally, the samples submission counter, where product samples and documentation will undergo through screening and inspection before being accepted for submission. You may submit hard copy tender documents and product samples to Pharmaniaga via one of 2 ways. 1. During the tender period, which is before the closing day, or 2. On the closing day by 12 noon. We will now explain the tender submission process during tender period before closing day. First, you are required to register your details at the guardhouse. You will be given a tenderer's and vehicle pass. Please ensure you wear the tenderer's pass at all time when you are in Pharmaniaga compound. Then, you may park at the designated visitors parking, and proceed onwards to our reception counter. Our receptionist will direct you to the quotation submission room, where you will undergo screening, registration and quotation submission procedures. You will then be directed to our warehouse inbound office, where your product samples and documentation will be inspected and stored for processing. We will now explain the tender submission process during closing day. For tender submission on the closing day, tenderers are required to enter Pharmaniaga's premises through Gate A. Signages will be placed at multiple locations to guide tenderers to the correct gate. After entering our premises, tenderers will have their time of entry recorded and assigned tender submission checklists and visitors passes. Tenderers will then follow directions by our staff to the designated parking area. Tender submissions will be conducted at an air-conditioned tent specifically set up for this event. Upon entering the air-conditioned tent, tenderers will collect queue numbers for the screening counter, and wait their turn for document screening. After the screening counter, tenderers will obtain queue numbers for the registration counters, and wait their turn to register their details. Following completion of tender registration, tenderers will be directed to a second air-conditioned tent, where the tenderer will be required to submit their quotation envelopes into tender boxes. Finally, tenderers will obtain queue numbers for sample submission counters, and wait their turn for product sample submission. Next, We will explain the security measures we have put in place to ensure the security and confidentiality of tender data. Due to the highly private and confidential nature of tenders, we are committed to keeping all tender information, documents and samples submitted by tenderers safe and secure to ensure that the tender is conducted in a fair and transparent manner. With regards to tender box security, tender quotations will be kept in a tender box, which was locked by the Ministry of Health before the tender. The tender box is kept in a secure location and its movements will be monitored by the Ministry of Health to ensure no tampering takes place. Our online tendering system is protected from external threats, such as hackers, by utilizing multiple layers of firewalls, SSL security encryption, and by deploying HTTPS protocol to secure our e-tender website. Online quotation data is also protected from internal threats. Servers for the e-tender system are kept in a highly secure server room with thumbprint access. The system also maintains log files, which record every system activity. This log file is made available for inspection by Ministry of Health if needed. Lastly, quotation data stored in the system is only accessible through a single master password, which is kept by the Ministry of Health. Representative from the Ministry of Health will then enter the master password after the closing day in order to download all tender quotation data. We will now briefly go through the tender evaluation and selection process. After the tender closing day, all tender documents and product samples received by Pharmaniaga will be forwarded to the Ministry of Health for technical and price evaluation. Pharmaniaga will also conduct logistics evaluation for the Ministry's consideration. The Ministry will then prepare a short list and will then select successful tenderers. Once the supplier selection have been finalized by Ministry of Health and the complete supplier list has been received by Pharmaniaga, we will send out letters of offer to successful tenderers. Upon acceptance of the letter of offer by the tenderer, a supply agreement between the tenderer and Pharmaniaga will then be signed and executed. The supply agreement contains various performance standards that must be adhered to by successful tenderers. The main ones include the following. Suppliers must deliver the products within the agreed lead time, or else they will be penalized 3% of undelivered value per everyday delay. Products supplied must comply with Ministry of Health specifications. Failing which, suppliers must replace the products or they will be penalized 3% of unreplaced product value per everyday delay. Products must have no less than 75% of shelf life remaining upon receipt by Pharmaniaga. If they do not, suppliers must replace the products or they will be penalized 3% of unreplaced product value per everyday delay. For cold chain products, cold chain must be maintained throughout the storage and delivery process from the supplier to Pharmaniaga. Failing which, suppliers must replace the products or they will be penalized 3% of unreplaced product value per everyday delay. Please be advised that there are other performance standards that must be adhered to by successful suppliers, with penalty implications for non-compliance. For further details on performance standards, please refer to the salient terms of the supply agreement document available for download on the e-tender website. If you need any further assistance or any enquiries regarding tender submission, kindly contact our representative at 0333429999 and request for Mr. Harzwan Shah at extension 234, or Mr. Said Mustafa at extension 639. You could also email to us at etender@pharmaniaga.com. That concludes our briefing session. We wish you all the best and good luck.